Just look at this guy on the left. Seriously, the nobleman. He isn't just wearing a hood, he's making a statement. It's velvet, it's flawless. He's probably bored out of his skull in that ridiculously warm castle. And then you've got the other guy, total opposite. That thing on his head isn't some fashion accessory he picked out. It's a lump of scratchy, probably damp wool. And it's the only damn thing standing between him and frostbite. It's easy to just see two hoods and think, who cares? That's a mistake. Because everything, and I mean everything, about the brutal, unfair reality of the Middle Ages is wrapped up in that one piece of fabric. It's the difference between a joke and a lifeline. And the secret that separates the two? It's just brilliantly stupid. You think modern fashion gets weird? You haven't seen anything yet. Let's talk about the single most ridiculous, baffling, and downright pointless accessory in human history. It's called a liripipe. Basically, it was a long, thin, useless tail of fabric that dangled off the back of a rich person's hood. And when I say long, I mean it. We're talking 3, 4, sometimes 5 feet of pure, unadulterated vanity, often made from some absurdly expensive silk that would shimmer as you walked. The texture alone screamed money. This was the 1400s equivalent of buying a solid gold Tesla key. It served no functional purpose. It was a floppy, expensive billboard attached to your head, designed to communicate one single message. I am so obscenely wealthy, I can afford to be this stupid. Imagine the pure, agonizing annoyance of it. You're trying to walk through a castle doorway and this thing snags on a torch sconce. You're leaning over your stew and, yep, there it goes, right in the gravy. You ever had a piece of your own clothing try to strangle you? These guys probably did. And fashion encyclopedias confirmed this isn't an exaggeration. Its entire reason for existing was to be an impractical, in-your-face symbol of status. But here's the kicker. This level of absurdity was a privilege. For the other 99% of the population, their hood wasn't a joke, and what they used it for is a whole lot more serious. So you think all hoods were created equal? That's a dangerously democratic way to look at the Middle Ages. The reality was a brutal class system, and it started right on top of your head. On one side, you have the nobleman's hood. This was the Ferrari of headwear. We're talking plush, deep-dyed velvet, or silk so fine it felt like water running through your fingers. The colors were loud, crimson red, royal blue, a vibrant get-out-of-my-way to the peasants. This hood lived indoors. It was a climate-controlled accessory for walking from your fireplace to your dinner table. It probably smelled faintly of spiced wine and entitlement. Then you had the commoner's hood, the beat-up '69 Volkswagen Beetle of hoods. This thing was made of coarse, scratchy, lanolin-stinking wool. Its color was mud, and its texture was regret. It was heavy, probably damp 99% of the time, and it was the only thing you had to protect you from a world that actively wanted you dead from exposure. So let's be real for a second. If you were dropped back then, which one would you be? The guy in the velvet, complaining the wine is a few degrees too warm? Or the one in the wet wool, just praying to see sunrise? Let me know in the comments which brand of medieval misery you'd choose. But here's where the story flips. Because that flashy, expensive hood, useless in a real crisis. That cheap, ugly one, though, it had a hidden superpower. And it's the reason some people stayed alive when they weren't supposed to. In the Middle Ages, there were laws that could get you blinded or even executed for shooting a single deer in the wrong patch of woods. Let that sink in. They were called the forest laws, and these weren't public parks. They were the king's private, all-you-can-eat pantry, and he guarded them with vicious force. Now, imagine you're a peasant, freezing through another miserable winter with a starving family. That forest right next to your village is a buffet of life-saving protein. But poaching that deer wasn't just a crime, it was a death sentence. So what do? Let your children starve? Or become a criminal for trying to feed them? This is where the simple peasanthood transformed. It stopped being just a piece of clothing and became the most important piece of tactical gear a person could own. It was the original incognito mode. Pull that scratchy, earth-colored wool forward, and your face just vanishes into shadow. You become a ghost. Imagine the sheer, gut-wrenching terror. You're deep in the woods, heart pounding in your ears, and you hear the distant sound of a horse. A game warden. Is your face hidden enough? Is the shadow deep enough? This is the brutal reality that created legends like Robin Hood. He's just the most famous poster boy for this desperate fight. For men like him, the hood wasn't style. It was the tool that let you walk out of those woods alive. But the commoner's hood wasn't the only one with secrets. That ridiculous, flashy tail on the nobleman's version, turns out it had a trick of its own, and you won't believe how clever it was. Okay, so remember that ridiculously long, stupid tail we made fun of? The liripipe? I might have lied, just a little. It turns out it wasn't completely useless after all. While the peasants were using their hoods to literally save their necks, the nobles had a couple of surprising life hacks built into theirs. First, if a sudden cold wind kicked up while you were walking from your carriage to the castle door, a real tragedy, I know, you could wrap that long tail around your neck. Instant scarf. Saved you from a mild inconvenience. But here's the real trick. That long hollow tube of fabric, it made for a perfect hidden pocket. Think about it. Sewn-in pockets weren't really a thing yet. So you could discreetly tuck a few silver coins or a secret note inside the tail of your hood. It was a makeshift wallet you wore on your head, a piggy bank with a PhD and looking ridiculous. So if this medieval life hack was worth your time, don't be a stingy lord. Smash that like button and subscribe to join our Brotherhood of Discoverers. But hold on. All of this, the outlawed tricks, the noble secret pocket, it's all just stories from old books, right? How do we know any of this for sure? Because we found the receipts, and they were buried under a literal mountain of ice. Okay, I get it. At this point, you're probably thinking, sure, fun stories, outlawed tricks and noble pockets, but where's the hard proof? It's a fair question. After all, what do you think happens to a piece of wool clothing after a few hundred years in the dirt? It rots. It vanishes. It turns to dust. At least, that's what it's supposed to do. But what if I told you that archaeologists found a complete medieval wardrobe, perfectly preserved? I'm not talking about a few scraps or a leather shoe. I mean the actual clothes people were buried in, perfectly intact. It's like finding a fully functional iPhone from 1945. It shouldn't exist. It breaks the rules of time and decay. For historians, a discovery like this is the lottery ticket of a lifetime. It's the 1 in a billion find that lets you stop guessing and start knowing. And the best part? The proof wasn't found in some dusty library in England or a forgotten tomb in France. It was found in the last place on earth you'd ever think to look. A place so brutally cold and unforgiving, it accidentally became the world's most perfect time machine. That natural time machine? It has a name. Greenland. Specifically, a Norse settlement called Herjolfsnes, lost to time for centuries. When archaeologists started digging there, they hit the historical jackpot. The secret was the permafrost. The ground was so permanently frozen, it was basically a 700-year-old deep freezer. And when they opened that freezer, they found the Holy Grail. Dozens of complete garments from the 1400s pulled from the ice as if they were worn last week. We're talking about a place where the winter temperature hits minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which, fun fact, is also minus 40 degrees Celsius. It's the point where thermometers give up. Can you even imagine that? Pulling a hood out of the ground that was last worn by someone when the Black Death was still a future horror? And these weren't just simple cloth bags. The hoods they found were complex, tailored pieces of engineering. They were multi-part, beautifully stitched survival gear designed to keep a human alive in the most hostile environment on the planet. So they didn't just find some old clothes. They found an entire lost wardrobe from the past. And what these perfectly preserved hoods revealed about medieval life, well, it changed everything we thought we knew. The term Dark Ages is probably the biggest lie in history. It suggests 1,000 years of people being clueless, clumsy, and living in mud huts. That single discovery in Greenland, it proved just how wrong that idea is. Because when textile experts examined these 700-year-old hoods, they didn't find crude, simple sacks. What they found was a masterclass in tailoring. This was the Arc'teryx jacket of the 1400s. It was high-performance technical gear. The hoods were made of multiple, perfectly shaped pieces, a separate section for the shoulders called a capelet to shed rain and keep the warmth in. The hood itself was often tailored with extra triangular pieces of fabric called gores to give it a perfect, form-fitting shape that wouldn't fly off in a gale-force wind. Did you honestly think they just threw a burlap sack over their heads and hoped for the best? This wasn't guesswork. This was engineering. It was an intimate understanding of materials and function passed down through generations. The truth wasn't just hidden under the ice. It was in the very stitches. And once you realize just how advanced this one simple piece of clothing was, it makes you wonder, what else have we been getting wrong? So let's go back to our two men. The nobleman with his velvet liripipe and the peasant with his frozen woolen shield. It was never just a hood. It was a mirror, reflecting the brutal reality of their world. On one side, a symbol of vanity so extreme it became a joke, a flimsy defense against a minor inconvenience. On the other, a masterpiece of survival engineering, a lifeline against a world of certain death. It's the same story today, isn't it? We're still surrounded by our own versions of the liripipe, the flashy, expensive things that scream status but do nothing. And we still rely on our own versions of that simple woolen hood, the practical, unglamorous tools that actually get us through the storm. What this one piece of clothing really teaches us is the eternal difference between what something costs and what it's actually worth. It's the story of humanity stitched into a single garment, because in the end, history doesn't care about your status symbols. It only cares about what you were strong enough and smart enough to survive. Quick, down below, which hood was truly you? The useless velvet or the vital wool? Your answer matters. Hit the like button now to signal you're with us and to keep this mission fueled. Share this video immediately. Don't let this truth die. There's no time to waste. The next discovery is already being unearthed right here. Click before the secret is buried again.